Welcome to Headline Hunting. I'm your host, Joe Ferraro, and joining me all the way from New Orleans, Louisiana, John Morgan finally arrived there safely. And John, an absolutely huge day for the world of mixed martial arts, especially when it comes to the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Major announcements in one conference call. We'll kick things off with drug testing. They've brought in USADA, a fantastic situation, strictly in my opinion, because I love carbon isotope testing, or carbon isotope ratio testing. It's very important, and now it's officially going to happen starting July 1st.
That's massive. Well, that's kind of funny. That's your favorite thing. But no, I mean, there's no way to say how big this is. I mean, this is a monumental day in the history of mixed martial arts, a monumental day in the history of the UFC. And listen, whether you're a critic of the UFC or not, I think at this point you got to stand back and just applaud them for the effort. I mean, there's nothing forcing them to make this change. But yet they're enlisting the help of USADA, which is, in most people's mind, one of the most stringent and best and most qualified drug testing agencies on the planet. They're going to independently oversee this program. This is the real deal. There's no other way to say it. This is the real deal. I do think it's a little bit scary. I think as mixed martial arts fans and as journalists and that sort of thing, I mean, I think we're going to see some guys get tested. The bottom line is when you outline this program, if you're cheating, you are going to get caught under this system. So this is the real deal. And but I think it's right, man. I think we were all kind of getting to a point where the failed tests were just adding up and getting ridiculous, and there was really no reason, for people to stay away from it. It seemed like the risk was kind of worth the reward, and I don't think that's the case anymore. And I'm excited about it. I think we're going to have some rough days ahead of us because I think we're going to unfortunately have some failures here and there. But I applaud the UFC, man. I think they made a move in the right direction here.
Well, hopefully it's a deterrent. First-time offenders will get 2 years, potentially 4 years. Second time, it's actually 4 years plus 4 years potentially. Third time could be a lifetime ban. So hopefully guys will understand that, look, this cannot be done. Stop it. Move forward to the Cleveland Clinic. Lawrence Epstein made something very clear that they're trying to get all the stuff happening right now with the Cleveland Clinic involved in terms of licensing. I like this idea because if you are able to find people that are predisposed to brain injuries or people that are showing signs that there could be brain injuries in the future, they shouldn't be licensed to fight.
Yeah, I won't pretend to know all the science behind this, but I really like this effort as well. Now, the Cleveland Clinic has been working on some things over the past couple of years with the Nevada State Athletic Commission with both mixed martial artists and boxers, trying to identify these precursors and really just collect as much data as they can. It's pretty cool what they do, Joe. They offer guys basically free medicals, things that might cost you about $1,000. They'll do it for you for free if you'll volunteer for their study. So it's kind of a cool way for fighters to save money and also be a part of this study. So I really like what they're doing. And again, I won't pretend to know the science behind it, but it is pretty cool. Kind of what they said, like, listen, if you have a detached retina, we don't allow guys to fight with a detached retina because we know what it means. If we can actually genetically identify that you are predisposed to having concussions and that you're at more risk than a normal person, then why shouldn't we protect you? And of course, that would be difficult for a guy to say, man, I got to hang it up because of these scientific indicators. But man, all the studies and things that we're seeing about long-term brain injuries, I think we could all admit that it would be worth it to cut a guy's career short if we can keep him from dealing with some of the things that we're seeing with guys dealing with, especially in other sports like American football, for instance.
Well, speaking of American football, they announced a relationship with Fusionetics as well as Exos. Now, you and I have traveled the world. We've been to so many different gyms, and sometimes you wonder, what's going on with their training? This doesn't make sense. There's got to be a better way. Now, this relationship and this announcement is an example where fighters and coaches can actually take a look at the Fusionetics and Exo system and say, you know what, we can apply this. Let's get tested. Let's take a look at what we need to work on, how to become better fighters, how to get optimum performance. I think this is a great deal.
I do too. I mean, the big key to this, and I was talking to Lawrence Epstein about this whole program, is getting people to buy in, getting fighters and camps to buy in, getting everybody to believe in it. And again, both these companies, they don't want to just see the athletes, they want to see the trainers as well. They understand that, we're not replacing trainers, we're just going to be a part of the training program. So we want coaches and trainers to come and pick this up as well. But I love it. I mean, the UFC traveled the world. They talked to top NFL franchises. They traveled over to England and spoke with Manchester City Football Club, which is obviously a hugely valuable program over there, and really just saw what elite level athletes are doing. And now here's an opportunity for every single fighter on the UFC roster to have access to this elite level training and something that is really designed around their body. As it was pointed out to me, Lawrence explained to me, listen, we can identify a guy whose knee is potentially a target for an ACL injury because of these biometric indicators that we can use, and therefore these companies can help them learn how to teach, how to train and to work out their knee to strengthen the muscles around that ligament to ensure that that injury doesn't happen. I mean, that's incredible to think about. And obviously, there's a little bit of selfish motivation. The UFC injuries have been a huge problem for them, and that's one of the reasons we're doing it. But to think about, guys being able to extend their career, to being able to wipe out time off the shelf to injuries, and to really be able to honestly just develop into better athletes, which means better fights. Man, I think this is a win-win all around. And while I know the big news of the day is going to be the drug program, I think this thing is just as cool.
Absolutely. And it's all part of what Epstein mentioned as the UFC lab, which will be a part of the new corporate headquarters opening soon. I believe next year, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me that on John. When you take a look at what they're doing and what they're building, I mean, this is all part of a huge facility that allow fighters to train while they're in Vegas, and if they're injured, get the proper rehab that they need.
Yeah, very, very cool program there as well. Again, as it was explained to me, it's like, listen, every other professional sports franchise in the world, if Peyton Manning or whatever, has a neck injury, you don't just go, okay, well, we got you repaired. We'll see you in a while. Hopefully you'll get better. No, I mean, the teams oversee the recovery of the athletes. So why shouldn't the UFC do the same thing? I mean, this is a league, not a team, but, basically their roster is their team. So this is very, very cool. They're going to allow their fighters to come out to Las Vegas. Now, again, there's fighters all over the world, but from my understanding, they might even help out with housing a little bit and really, provide this area. So I think it's fantastic. A guy is going to be able to, have his knee repaired or what have you, and then come into the UFC facility, train it, do all the repair and maintenance there while it's being overseen by the company itself and by these company doctors. And I think it's a brilliant move. I really do. I mean, man, I know we're just standing here in praise, but I got to say, man, this thing from top to bottom, I just think it's so cool. And, I think they took some really neat steps here.
And the one thing that really caught my eye with the piece that you wrote was post-UFC career assistance. When you take a look at some of these fighters, male or female, they don't make as much money as, for example, the John Joneses or the Ronda Rouseys or the George St. Pierres. They don't make enough money to survive once their career is over. The UFC will be bringing in help, corporations that'll basically help these guys and girls transition to a post-career.
This is really cool. I talked to Dave Schaller about it. It's not quite done yet. They're still shopping for companies to kind of help them do this and agencies that will help them do this. But what a cool way to do it, because I think we've all seen, Joe, at this point that, hey, once I finish my career, I'll open up a gym isn't necessarily the best career mindset. And, it's the matchmakers that always say it. I've heard it multiple times from Joe Silva and Sean Shelby that, listen, mixed martial arts is not necessarily a career. It's an opportunity. I mean, it's not something you can do until you're 65 years old. It's a little tiny window of opportunity for you to come in, make as much money as possible, set yourself up for a future and move on. And, there's commentating roles, which is great. There is the ability to open training facilities, which is great, but there needs to be much more than that. And I think it's very cool that the UFC even cares enough to do this. Again, I mean, people criticize the UFC all the time, but I just, after today's press conference and after the announcements that they made, I just don't see how you can't be in support. And just, again, even if you hate the UFC, you got to step back today and just say, hey, kudos, great moves.
Absolutely. And speaking of great moves, we look forward to your coverage from New Orleans. It's going to be a great event on Saturday night. John, thank you very much for your time.
Always a pleasure, brother.